Yo, what's up guys, it's NLW Figs here, back again with another video. Today, we're going to be looking at AEW Rampage, a show which is fastly becoming one of my favourites to watch in wrestling today. Despite not having the best ratings and having a bad time slot, it is slowly becoming one of the best hours of wrestling every week, if not the best. And I kind of want to talk about it because some of you may not watch Rampage, but after this video I hope I can convince you to do so, because a lot of times I think it's quite better than Dynamite in my opinion. I'll talk about it in a bit, but before I do, make sure you like the video as it helps get the channel out there, and as always remember to subscribe to NLW Figs, and hey, comment below what do you think about AEW Rampage? Do you watch it? Do you enjoy it? After this video I'm hoping to make a couple more Rampage fans like myself, but without further ado, we'll get into it. So firstly, let's go back to the beginning when Rampage was announced. It was announced as an hour show to supplement Dynamite. It would be live some weeks, and a lot of weeks it would just be taped. Usually the format will be a big match at the start to get fans invested, as they probably have just stopped watching SmackDown, and then in the middle have kind of a cool down women's match, and finally a fun main event. For instance, on the first episode, the very first Rampage match was a huge encounter between Kenny Omega and Christian Cage for the Impact World title, a match that made people invested in their all-out match, a fantastic showing by both of them, and a historic title change for Christian to win the Impact title. So you start off with this big match, good opening action, and then you have Miro defending the TNT Championship in a fun little squash against Fuego del Sol, and in the main event, the women's title's on the line with Britt Baker defending against Red Velvet in a fun little match. And I remember watching it about 2 months ago and thinking that it just flew by, a really fun, action-packed hour of wrestling, you know? Sometimes Dynamite can drag a little bit in the middle, but with Rampage, it's a solid 40 minutes of wrestling without ad breaks, and it's action-packed, very fun opening show. And then the very next week, gotta talk about that. Even bigger, one of the biggest attendances that has ever attended an AEW show in the United Center for the first dance. Everyone was speculating, was CM Punk going to debut? Well, of course he was, because it's the worst kept secret in wrestling. And CM Punk finally debuts to a thunderous ovation. Probably one of the best wrestling moments of the decade, at least for me. I'm a massive CM Punk fan, was back in the day, was devastated when he left wrestling, and I'm so happy to see him back, a little bit less bitter, hopefully, and you know, finally keen to get back into the wrestling game he is after so long. So surreal to see, and you know what? It was overshadowed, but a fun match on that show was Jurassic Express and Private Party, and also a fun little main event between Darby Allin and Daniel Garcia. So already you have Rampage cemented as something where big stuff can happen. You know, the return of CM Punk to wrestling, and just an amazing promo, really unmissable stuff. Whilst it may not be on the level as Dynamite, you're still going to get some big matches and big moments that are certainly worth watching week to week. Next week it was a little bit hurt by the fact that it was taped, and one of the only problems with Rampage, you know, I'd like to see them have more live tapings. I know coming up in October and November they've got more live shows for Rampage, but you know, there's an issue of the crowd being a bit tired after Dynamite watching Rampage, and you notice a little bit in the broadcast. That said though, Rampage, after All Out, that was taped and had one of my favourite matches of the year between Andrade and Pac. Go out your way to watch that one. Probably the best match in Rampage history thus far between those two, just incredible chemistry between them. And I'd like to see more of Andrade and Pac, particularly once Kenny Omega loses the AEW Championship. I'd like to see Andrade and Pac in more of a main event position going forward. And the other thing I like about Rampage is it generally features different wrestlers from Dynamite. So in WWE, you've kind of got a brand split going on with Raw and SmackDown, but with AEW, they have such a deep talent roster that they can use different people on both Rampage and Dynamite, so it makes it feel like a different show, and it doesn't feel samey, it doesn't feel tired, and because the action flows so quickly, it's really fun to watch. And they recently had Daniel Garcia go against CM Punk on Rampage, which was also quite a fun match. And a couple weeks ago, there was also the Lucha Brothers versus the Butcher and the Blade, another fun match. Bryan Danielson versus Nick Jackson as well, a really good showcase. Bryan's first win in AEW, just kicking the hell out of the Young Buck, and it's good to see. Every week the opener is fantastic. You have a little bit of a cool down in the middle, but because the show is at such a fast pace, you know it's almost over, so it's not really like it's dragging in the middle, you know what I mean? There are a couple of fun matches here and there to see, and you know, unfortunately, because of the time slot they're in at the moment, so late on a Friday, the main event isn't going to be the biggest match in the world each week, which is one of the weaknesses of the show, because they start off so strong, and they end, not with a whimper, but not as strong as they started off. But there is still fun to be had. For instance, Jack Evans and Orange Cassidy had a really fun hair versus hair match, which was good for the babyfaces and it sent the crowd home happy. Case in point, Britt Baker and Ruby Soho had a great exchange on the mic a couple weeks ago too, which was one of the segments of the year for them. And who can forget Rampage Grand Slam, special 2 hours? That one probably did drag quite a bit. I think if they just had the Punk match, the Super Click match and the main event in just 1 hour, I think that would have been better. But it had significance as a big crowd was there to witness it, and it had a lot of fun moments too. There's a couple of issues with the commentary. A 4-man booth is too much, but they seem to be tweaking it now to just be 3 men with just Ricky Starks, Excalibur and Taz, which I'm quite digging. Ultimately though, the point I'm trying to make is even if the main events are a bit iffy sometimes, even if it is taped, with 40 minutes of action, it goes by really fast, and I'm only starting to get into it when I'm watching it. And I've noticed after the first match, it's already halfway through, so the time flies. And it's surprising, every week on Rampage, there's been at least one excellent match, usually the opener, and it makes watching the rest of the show really easy. And I would actually argue it's a good way to book a pick fed. You know, you start off with a big match, have a bit of a cool down in the middle, and end on a strong main event. It's not too much, but it's not too little. You've got Dynamite as the flagship. That's not changing. That's where your money's coming in mostly with the ratings. Rampage still brings in decent numbers for the time slot it's in, and I think personally they would benefit from having it moved before SmackDown, or even put it on Tuesdays instead of AEW Dark, you know, to get more of an audience on it. But I do like that kind of late night feel to it. Just an hour of wrestling on a Friday seems to fly by really fast, and I like watching it on Saturday morning too. Reminds me of when I was a kid, so, you know, that's fun. Just to kind of segue a little bit into talking about another show I really enjoy is AEW Dark Elevation. Currently they're doing Dark at Universal Studios, but Elevation is still taped before Dynamite in front of a live crowd, and I think it's got something fun to offer every week. You know, Eddie Kingston on commentary, he's a riot, and they also have a lot of cool matches with, you know, some lesser known talents, so you might get a cracker with Dante Martin in there, for example, or Matt Sydal. You know, you're always set to have something fun on that Dark Elevation show. Maybe a couple of legends will show up, like Paul White, for example, had a match once, and you also had Crowbar on a recent episode of Dark Elevation, so that's another fun watch, because it's not all just squashes. There are a couple of competitive matches on there, for instance as well, Joey Janela vs Sonny Kiss a couple weeks ago. They've got a lot of feuds going on that show, so it's quite interesting to see how that progresses as well, and I do like the kind of undercard storylines that they've got going on. I think it means a lot more when you've got everyone having something to do on the roster. I really dig that. And as I was saying, even though Dynamite's the main show, that's where you get most of the action, Rampage will always feature one fantastic match at least, and usually have a nice babyface ending at the end. It's fun to watch is what I'm trying to say, relaxing, the quickest hour of wrestling on TV at the moment, bar none. So, that is it for Rampage. I just wanted to talk a little bit about it because it's been something that I've wanted to talk about. And you know, you want to use this second channel as more of a chance to experiment with videos and talk about wrestling as well as wrestling figures. And as I was saying before, I think if you look at AEW Rampage, it is the perfect way to book a pick fed because you've got the strong opener, the 3-segment format. I think it's great. It's not too overbooked. And also, in a world where we've not got a lot of time on our hands, whether that be school, whether that be work, having a 40-minute wrestling show to watch on a Friday night or a Saturday morning is really fun. But what are your thoughts on AEW Rampage, and what did you think of the video? Let me know in the comments below. And what wrestling program or promotion do you want me to cover next? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you like the video to help get the channel out there, and remember to subscribe to NLW Figs. That's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys later.